Hello and welcome to Exhibit A. Today we're going to cover one of the most important topics that we family law attorneys deal with, and that's child custody, where there's instances or lots of instances of domestic violence and kids are involved one way or the other, whether they're victims or they're just present during the domestic violence. And with us today is Jessica Feng, our great associate attorney who's going to help us understand this case. Jessica has read the case. She's brilliant, and she's going to help us first understand the factual parts, and then we're going to talk about how the court dealt with it, what happened when the court went up on appeal, and some of the comments and lessons that we can learn from this decision. And hopefully it's going to help you in understanding family law just a little bit better. So, Jessica, welcome.
Thank you, Don.
So what's the name of this case?
It's KTVES.
Okay, KTVES. And, you know, I don't know if I've mentioned this on prior podcasts, but the Court of Appeal seems to be using abbreviations more and more in these decisions, protecting parties, I guess, privacy, even though these are public decisions. For me, it hasn't been a problem. I thought initially, I think, gosh, you know, if we've got a gazillion KTs, then how could you distinguish one from the other? Of course, we got the citation, but it seems to be working out okay. So can you give us a factual rundown of this case?
Yes, of course. So KT is a plaintiff and ES is a respondent. KT is the one who was applying for a restraining order.
Okay, and to make it easier, maybe ET is?
KT is the mother, ET is the father.
Okay, so why don't we just say mother and father from this point on, now that we got that cleared out, and there's some children, right?
There's three minor daughters.
Okay.
So the parties met when the mother was a minor in Honduras. Father was 42 and mother was 26 when they filed this restraining order.
Okay, and let me stop you there if you don't mind. I reread the decision just before I came into the room here, and I noted again, this time it resonated with me more, in a footnote 2 of the case, the Court of Appeal stated that age discrepancy could be a relevant factor in determining the circumstances surrounding the domestic violence allegations. And I thought that was very interesting. I've never heard that before. So you have a 26-year-old woman and a 42-year-old man, and I guess the court was really looking at this as a complete dominion and control of this poor young woman, right?
Definitely.
And it was because of the fact that when they met, she was a minor.
She was a minor.
And he was a sex trafficker, or actually he was a human trafficker. I don't know if he was, yeah.
He trafficked her from Honduras to Mexico and then to the United States.
Okay. And
he isolated her, he controlled her, and abused her repeatedly for 7 years. So the father regularly hits the mother and their 3 daughters, and he would monitor her movements and he would deprive her of her independence. Another thing he did was that he replaced her birth control with vitamins so that she could get pregnant again after she gave birth to her first daughter.
And he said he did that because he didn't want any other man to want her. He wanted to keep her under his control.
Definitely. And then there are incidents in June 2022 that included severe physical assault and rape in the children's presence. So the next day, actually, I think the mother was under complete control of the father. She wasn't able to access her phone. She was only able to use her phone while the father is present. When this incident happened, she hid her smartwatch in a bathroom, and then she went back to the smartwatch after being beaten to call for police.
Yeah, Jessica, we're reciting some of the facts regarding the domestic violence in this opinion, but if we were actually to go through the whole thing, we would be here for about an hour because it's pretty graphic and very detailed. So we're going to hit some of the highlights. When we talk about these decisions, we kind of summarize, but if anybody's interested in seeing this in real color, get a hold of this decision and read it because it's pretty graphic and pretty terrible. I mean, you talked about already that there was, he raped her. He raped her in front of the children.
Very, very scary. It's terrifying. And then, so the next day, the police arrested the father, and mother was hospitalized, and then she fled with the children to Texas.
Okay, so you have this period of time where they're outside of the state of California. Does it state in the decision about what year that happened?
2022.
Okay, so just a couple of years ago, but I think it's noteworthy of the dates here. So she takes the children to Texas, and then what happens?
So, despite the fact that there's a Texas restraining order, the father hacked mother's Facebook and tried to locate her. And then he appeared at her residence, and she was living with her aunt during that time, and he just appeared out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I think what's important for this decision is when she got that restraining order, mom got it in Texas. So
Yes.
she was violated here in California. She flees to Texas, and the Texas court grants a restraining order against father, and he's violating it. He's contacting
Yes.
her. He's doing things that the restraining order says you shouldn't be doing, right?
Yes, and she actually told him that you're violating the orders, but he doesn't seem to care about the violations. And I believe later she had to dissolve her restraining order in Texas because she's worried that he might kill her or the children.
Yeah, and as I understood it, is that the father convinced her to have some visitation with the children,
Yes.
and he promised that he would return them.
Right.
Well, what do you think happened, Jessica?
That never happened.
Right. He held on to them,
Yeah.
right? And then he started making demands upon her that if she wants to see the children again, she's going to have to drop the restraining order. She has to move back to California, that type of a thing. So, again, we've got this woman who's at the mercy of this man to protect her own children, and he's doing these god awful things to her at the same time. So after he makes those demands, what happens next?
So, at one instance, he demanded to take the 3 children with him, and she complied, but at the end, he never returned the kids. So he ended up taking the children to Mexico and then in California. So this case comes back to California now because he demanded the wife to be there.
So he doesn't return the kids to Texas. He, in fact, goes to Mexico, then goes to California, and then he starts communicating with her while he's in custody of the children.
Yes. And then she filed a restraining order against him in California, and she listed all her 3 kids in her request for restraining order.
So my understanding is that when she came back to California,
Right.
she dropped the Texas restraining order,
She
and they
did.
lived together again, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they lived together again, and then what happened is eventually she had enough because he was doing it again. He was berating her. There were incidents. Remember the car incident where they're driving in the car and
Right.
Can you remember the facts of the car?
I think he was smashing her head against the area in front of the passenger seat, and the children were
They're all
screaming.
present.
Yeah.
Okay, so she eventually files a petition for a restraining order here in Los Angeles,
Right.
right?
So
So then what happened next?
So she received a temporary restraining order, and then at the hearing date, she requested that her three children should be the protected parties as well. But the trial court did not grant her request.
So to slow it down just a little bit, we're in LA County now. She's getting she files a petition for a temporary restraining order. It's granted,
Right.
but the children are not listed as protected parties in the temporary restraining order.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so we know that the temporary restraining order is only going to last until you get to
To the hearing.
The hearing, for a permanent restraining order,
Right.
which eventually takes place.
Right.
And what happens at the hearing?
At the hearing, mother's attorney requested the court to include those 3 children as protected parties, but the court the court heard their argument, and at first the court did not want to hear anything about the children because it believes that they're gearing towards custody issues, which are not in front of the court. But later the court admitted that the children were there witnessing those horrible acts conducted by the father to the mother. But the court still did not add the children to the 3-year restraining order the mom was able to get.
Yeah, so this is a regular evidentiary hearing. Mother testifies. The court says at the onset, and she's represented by an attorney.
She is, yes.
And the court says, I don't want to really rehash things that are already in the declaration. Why don't you tell me what else I need to know?
Right.
And as the attorney is trying to elicit the testimony from the mother, the court starts interjecting a little bit about that.
Yes.
But ultimately, she testifies about the domestic abuse again.
Yes.
Right? And I think it's a salient point that during this hearing, the judge makes that comment that you said, is that this is more like a custody matter than it is restraining order.
Right. And so the court did listen to the fact that the children were in those instances, but the court believed that there was no imminent harm towards the children. So the court actually did grant the father visitation right, and I think ordered joint custody of the
joint
kids.
Custody.
Yeah.
So the court issues a restraining order, doesn't name the children as protected parties, and grants the father joint custody.
Yes.
Now, what were the reasons that the court gave for not listing the children as protected parties? You've already said it, I think, but I think it's
imminent risk of direct abuse to the children. That the mother did not provide direct evidence of physical or sexual abuse of the children in front of the court.
Right. So witnessing the domestic violence in this court's mind was not enough.
Right.
Okay. And what happens next?
So the appellate court disagreed. The appellate court believed that the legal standard should be a showing of, not the showing of imminent risk or direct abuse, but a showing of good cause based on the totality of circumstances. And the appellate court believed that this case made the totality of circumstances of a good cause, because the children, under the DVPA code 66,320, there is good cause by disturbing the peace of the children.
Without a question. I mean,
Right.
when you look at the facts of this case, how could there not be domestic violence that was committed in the presence of the children? And the court stated, Jessica, that I thought was really one of the main things that I got from this decision is just witnessing one instance alone could be good cause
Right.
to name the children as protected parties. And, look at the facts of this case. There were way more than one instance.
Repeated.
And some
yes.
horrible things. Sexual assault on mom in front of the kids, beating her in the car. And there were some other allegations that were made, about the children being abused themselves. But this court felt that, the trial court felt that wasn't enough because it wasn't direct physical or imminent risk on the children. The court said, what?
The court said that's not necessary. You just need good cause, that there's harm.
That's what the Court of Appeals said, yeah. So, in wrapping up this case, I got a few comments. The first is that we know that despite all the good work that you and I are doing and what the police are doing and all the other family law attorneys and prosecutors and victims advocates through the years been fighting against domestic violence, it's still occurring. It may not be at the levels of it once was, but it's occurring. You just read this decision and understand that there is a need for protecting people in family court, right?
Definitely.
Unbelievable facts in this case, right? So it's there. We also know that we no longer have to go through mental gymnastics with courts to get children named as protected parties, right? You know, and that was always, that has been a struggle, in some of our cases, but witnessing in itself should be enough, because we all know that children are impacted by
their parents' interactions.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine the horror that these three kids experienced?
It's
And how that's going to
terrifying.
impact them for the rest of their lives?
Yeah.
So it's the right call. It's the right
Right.
call for the Court of Appeal to say, look, trial court. And by the way, the Court of Appeal says we're not going to remand this to be retried, right?
Yes.
We're going to say there's no need for that.
Yes.
Court, we're remanding this, so you issue that them as protected parties.
Right.
Very powerful.
Right.
You normally don't see that. There's other lessons to be learned here. I think that we know that the court can't just hang its head and say, well, this is mostly a custody matter, right? And that's what the court was doing here. This is kind of like, this is more like custody, so we don't really have to name the kids as that because you got this mix of custody and domestic violence. The fact that there was domestic violence and custody doesn't reduce the severity of the domestic violence, and the restraining orders and the protection of the court need to happen in those circumstances.
Right. Definitely.
Cool. Well, this was fun. I think you did a great job.
Oh, thank you.
I think, I don't know about you, but I feel a lot more comfortable protecting people knowing that I've got this decision, at hand, in case we get children that are involved in these cases like this.
Definitely. I feel the same.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Jessica.
Thank
Come
you,
back
Don.
again. We'll talk about some more cases soon. And thank you for joining us on Exhibit A.
Thank you.